called Plan Non-Plan, which is based on an essay written in 1969 by Cedric Price, where Cedric Price explored imagining architecture without planning restrictions altogether. He proposed lifting regulations on land use control, the aesthetic control for buildings, and the common lands law, just as an example. There are many more that he proposed, and imagining how the architecture might be liberated by it. The small debate over Ale discussed the power of the planner. Is the planner more powerful than the architect? Should there be more or less planning, legislation or process? There was a huge criticism about the process of planning, about the lack of planning requirements varying with the scale of projects, why some tiny projects still required so much to be submitted. And similarly, should more trust be placed in architects to say, we trust you because you're an architect? Incidentally, in Holland, for example, all planners need a first degree in architecture before they can be planners of the city. Is that something that England might benefit from? We're also keen to promote, to value the promotion of architecture as well as a whole. How does society view architecture? How do they view the architects? Do they just think about grand designs and Sarah Beanie and think, oh yes, that's the world we operate in and that's what our job involves? We were approached by the London Festival of Architecture just a couple of weeks ago to work with them and the Worshipful Company of Chartered Architects to promote the architect and architecture for the festival this summer. This is very, very hot off the press as we dreamt this proposal up about 4 days ago. But we thought of having something permanent in London to mark this change, mark 2012 as a big year. And we've spotted a site on Tottenham Court Road, happens to be where a lot of architecture practices are based. And there's a very dead square, I don't know if many of you know, with a very blank wall. And once again, Dan's keen to get painting. So we thought of an urban mural that brings together the idea of the city guilds and the ancient trades and the architect and how he sits within that, he or she sits within that, and how 2012 is a big year. So we've nabbed this square. There's very little apart from this mural going on in there. It might just be an invitation for perhaps the School of Architecture to be involved, to host some sort of street party, to make a statement, to question the promotion of architecture. And we'd be open to ideas as well, as this is very early on in its inception. So just to sort of conclude, we're looking to build stronger relationships with schools of architecture. We're doing talks like this, but we're also trying to get students involved, talking in much smaller groups. And these are the students that will soon be graduates and face the same issues we faced just a couple of years ago when we graduated. I think my personal pitch is to say it's really easy to just go through the motions and just think about education leading to qualification and then apparently your career is sorted, but it's obviously not like that. And we could just accept the prospects of our career, the prospects of the changing profession, or we could be part of it, engage in it, embrace what's good and try to change what can be changed to make it better. Really hope I haven't scared you with some of the ideas facing the built environment, education and the profession. These are just a few questions I showed earlier which might start off a bit of a discussion after this talk. And just like to say that the collaborative doesn't want to simply rant and blame, as you may have realised, and we want to be a part of change. And we want to embrace the fact that everybody can be part of the conversation and can influence change. And that's right from the first year student to principles of practice. Thank you.
Do we have any questions, Alison?
How do you make money?
Well, part of what we strive to do, actually, and the biggest thing that keeps us going is the fact that we're not reliant on being commercially viable. It would almost take the fun out of it to think we were reliant on it for money and income. So the way we do things is we work full time, and this is our evening and weekend passion. When we have an event that requires money, we seek sponsorship in kind. There's some necessary costs that we then try and meet through direct sponsorship, as well as putting in a little bit of cash on our own, and then having the idea that so much can be gained without putting money into it, like free advertising space, free marketing, contacting friends who can help, and also being quite bold and not expecting to pay for everything. So, how did the three of us meet? Yeah, it's a really interesting question. We didn't know each other at all. Dan and I were introduced through the president of the ACA. He asked us to meet up sometime and talk about this space he might have, and it was all very tentative. And for a few months, nothing really happened. And then I was at a house party and recognised Dan's name on Facebook as going to this event, and I asked someone to point him out, and he had a can of cider and was standing on the stairs of this house party, and I went and introduced myself. And for a long time, we approached the crypt as a sort of professional project we'd been given, and we slowly realised that we had the same sort of passions and same sort of visions, and a friendship's developed from that. But at the same time, from not being friends before, we still work within the collaborative in a professional aspect. In terms of way, we realised we were lacking some resources, and we needed a project manager. We needed someone who could help with marketing, and we just put a post out on Facebook asking for people to get in touch, and he got in touch. He happened to have been a couple of years younger than me and studied at Sheffield, where I did my Part 1, so we had a lot of mutual friends. And then he came on board again, not as a direct friend. So once again, when we first met him, it was almost like interviewing somebody and giving them a brief and having them respond to the brief. And I think that's what kind of works so well, because we enjoy the fact we're all so different, and we all have completely separate friendship circles and professional networks. And then when that all comes together, everything seems to be much bigger. You know, the power of our tiny networks individually, and then when it comes together is quite exciting.
And with all these that debates on how what you think architecture will be, like what are your views of architecture in the future like?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, for the three aspects, in terms of education, I think there will come a point where the number of students applying or the number of students qualifying and the types of students studying architecture is going to drastically change, and the institutions, but also the people validating courses, will have to respond adequately. So my view is that change will have to be inevitable to make it more accessible, and it needs to sort of start happening now, and these conversations need to start happening now. In terms of the profession, I did think at one point that the architect might be extinct in 20 or 30 years' time. I'm still debating that now. I think there's the whole idea of the protection of title the ARB has versus the protection of function. And I think unless architects start to accept that they need to do more than what they thought they originally did, there's a fantastic opportunity there to be mediators as the public gets a larger voice with the localism bill, etc. So it's almost adapt or die. And I think the architect will slowly adapt and start to become experts with new technology. So building information modelling, BIM, is coming in very, very quickly. And if architects can be experts in things where the other professionals can't be, then we'll still have a part to play.
I noticed you did architectural competitions when you were achieving.
That's right.
What are your views on architectural competitions and what do they go for practice?
In terms of building competitions, it is a very, very controversial topic, because clients often have, in my opinion, have competitions that invite the same old people to submit, and it's only the larger practices that can afford the resources to submit that then end up submitting, and it's always the same practices in that game. I think open competitions also seem really unappealing, because the chances of a small practice winning is quite small. So I don't think they're going to go away.